We've all heard ghost stories, right? The kind that make you check the locks on your doors. But what if I told you about a story that starts with a ghost rumor, but ends with a truth that is way, way more terrifying than any spirit? It really forces us to ask a pretty difficult question. So, what is scarier, a ghost or a perfectly planned murder? I mean, really think about it. That's the question at the heart of what we're digging into today. Because this story, wow, it kind of suggests that the most horrifying things aren't ghosts or ghouls, but what ordinary people are capable of when they're pushed to the absolute edge. Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off with a woman named Suda. She and her husband, Jason, moved to this super quiet, idyllic-looking village. You know the type. Seems peaceful, everyone knows everyone, a real escape from the city. But underneath that calm surface, there was this simmering prejudice. Right near their new home, there was this old Native American burial ground. And for Suda, being new to the area, this place was absolutely fascinating. It was like a direct link to a history and a culture she really wanted to understand. She was just super curious about it. But that curiosity, it pretty much ran smack into a brick wall of prejudice. Her husband Jason, and a lot of the locals, they were just not interested. They were actively dismissive. They'd say things like it was a place for backwards people. Just totally contemptuous. And that clash, right there, was the first real clue that this peaceful village had some serious, ugly secrets bubbling just below the surface.
So let's fast forward a few years. The village starts to change. It's not so quiet anymore. It's becoming a bit of a tourist spot. You know, with little coffee shops and homestays. And all these new people brought a new kind of attention and a whole new batch of rumors. And guess where they were all focused? Yep, that old burial ground.
This is when things start to get weird. People, tourists and locals alike, start whispering. They're talking about seeing this strange figure at night, a man in traditional Native American clothes, just haunting the burial ground. The ghost story was officially born. So what was really going on here? The whole town kind of split into two camps. You had people like Suda who were thinking, hey, maybe it is a real spirit, upset about all the tourists. But most people, including Suda's neighbor David, just rolled their eyes. They were convinced it was a prankster. Probably some kid trying to make a viral video. Just a harmless joke, right? Oh, they had no idea how wrong they were. And this is where the story takes a really sharp, really dark turn. It centers on that same skeptical neighbor, David. One Friday night, he tells his wife he's just popping out for a walk. And then, poof, he's gone. He just vanishes. The whole community goes into panic mode. A massive search kicks off. They look all day Saturday, but nothing. Then on Sunday, they find him. He's inside the locked burial ground, unconscious. How do you even get in there? He gets rushed to the hospital, but he's totally out of it for days, silent. Then, finally, on Thursday, he wakes up, and the story he tells is completely impossible. So David says that on Friday night, he saw the so-called ghost and decided, that's it, I'm going to expose this prankster. He follows the figure into the burial ground, and that's when he sees something so horrifying he says he just passed out cold. He describes a dead body, a corpse with its arms cut off and an axe sticking out of its back. Okay, but here's the first huge twist in this whole thing. When the search party found David on Sunday, there was nothing there. No body, no axe, not even a drop of blood. The scene was totally clean. The police figured he must have been hallucinating, that the whole thing was a bad dream. But David is absolutely frantic. He swears up and down he's telling the truth. So, to try and calm him down, his wife Belle and Suda's husband Jason decide to go back to the burial ground themselves. The plan was to take some pictures, just to prove to him that he was imagining things. Yeah, well, when they get there, they find it. Exactly what David described. A real body, severed arms, an axe buried in its back. Suddenly, David's impossible vision wasn't a hallucination anymore. It was a very real, very gruesome crime scene.
This is where it gets truly mind-bending. Just look at this timeline. It's a total paradox. David describes the murder scene on Sunday, right? But the body isn't actually found until Thursday. And get this, the coroner says the victim was killed on Wednesday. David has a rock-solid alibi the whole time. He was in the hospital unconscious from Sunday straight through to Thursday. So how? How on earth did he describe a murder in perfect detail days before it even happened?
Things got even worse when the police identified the victim. It sent another shockwave through the whole village.
The man was Iran, another one of their neighbors. This wasn't just some ghost story anymore. This was real murder, and the killer and the victim were living right there among them.
So what was it? A genuine psychic vision? A real ghost warning? Now, the truth was something much colder, much more calculated. That impossible timeline wasn't supernatural at all. It was the result of a chillingly brilliant and very human plan.
And the killers? They were the people right at the heart of this whole mystery. David, the guy who had the vision, and his wife Belle. They weren't just witnesses to a crime. They were the architects who designed the whole thing from the ground up.
So how in the world did they pull this off? Well, it was a seriously clever four-step plot. First, David becomes the ghost, creating the supernatural rumor himself. That's the setup. Second, he fakes his own disappearance so he can predict the murder scene he claims to have seen. Third, his trip to the hospital gives him the perfect, unbreakable alibi for when the murder actually happens. And then, the final step. While David is safe and sound under observation, Belle lures the victim, Iran, to that exact spot. She kills him and stages the body to be a perfect match for David's vision. It was, for all intents and purposes, the perfect crime.
But why? Why go through all of that? Why create such a complicated theatrical murder plot? Well, the motive was one of the oldest, most powerful drivers of human behavior there is: revenge. You see, the victim, Iran, wasn't just some random neighbor. He had been raping and blackmailing Belle, just tormenting her. And David, he felt he was too old, too weak to physically stop him. So he devised this insane, impossible plan. He thought it was the only way he could get justice for his wife and make it stop.
So how did this perfect plan fall apart? Well, the police started putting the pieces together. They searched David and Belle's house and found the Native American costume, the ghost costume. Even more telling, they discovered that David, the guy who was so publicly dismissive of the local culture, was secretly an expert on it. He'd done tons of research, which he used to make the whole ghost story believable. And the final nail in the coffin? As soon as David and Belle were arrested, the ghost sightings just stopped. Funny how that works.
So in the end, this whole thing wasn't really a ghost story, was it? It was a story about human desperation, about revenge, and about the absolutely terrifying things people are capable of when they feel trapped with no way out. It really makes you wonder, what are the real monsters we should be afraid of? The ghosts we imagined in the darkness, or the people living right next door?